and and it's an interesting one on hits and misses in Goldwater applications. And this discussion is going to be led by Carrie and Babs, and I'll ask them to introduce themselves so that everybody knows who they are and what their backgrounds are. And I believe we have all six consultants here today to answer questions. And so we're looking forward to everybody's questions. Carrie, Babs, it's all yours.
Okay, hello everyone. I'm Carrie Caruxtis. I have recently retired from being a chemistry faculty member at Harvey Mudd College in Southern California, a private college of science and engineering. I've been reviewing for Goldwater for a number of years and serving as a consultant for the past couple of years. And I look forward to your questions on this topic.
Carrie, do you want to mention when they can ask questions?
Yes, if you have questions as we're going along on a particular slide, put your question in the chat and we're going to have someone read that. And as long as we have time, we'd like to address the questions as we're going along, but there'll be time for questions at the end as well.
And I'm Babs Wise. I've been a Goldwater Foundation consultant for the last 3 years, and I am retired as the Director of Nationally Competitive Scholarships at Duke University, where I spent about 20 years dealing with applicants for scholarships and as an academic advisor. All right. So today we're going to be talking about good things to put in an application and maybe not so good things to put in an application. That's what we mean by hits and misses. And just briefly, we want to talk about the roles of the CR. That's the role I'm most familiar with. And, you know, I sort of put it into some buckets. You're choosing your students, you're advising them. If you're not a scientist, you may be recruiting some faculty to help you. And even if you are in the sciences, it's good to have people from multiple disciplines help you decide on who to choose, and you may need some help looking at their research essays. And then you also need to help and teach the student how to manage the recommendation process. And then finally, in January, you're going to look through the application for the hits and misses that we're going to be talking about and help the student get more hits than misses. And you can do this both by helping them edit, getting help from their recommenders to do that kind of thing. And also, if there's no other place, you can talk about the student in your CR statement. Okay. So over the years, I had a lot of advice for students, and I think these, particularly here in November, right as they're getting started, the way to talk to the student is to think of the application as a story. They have these few questions to kind of let the reviewers know who you are and why we should know that a research career is a slam dunk for you. And then how will you get there? Okay, so somehow in these questions, they want to really get these things out and sort of as a story, it unfolds. And then they need to understand that recommenders add credence to whatever you say about yourself. So, you know, we're suggesting that, well, I wouldn't even say suggesting, I'd more strongly say we strongly recommend that the research mentor is one of the references. And then perhaps a teacher in the sciences, not just the French instructor, and then someone from another research experience. That can be varied depending on the student's experiences. And finally, I think you really don't want to you want the student to understand that the reviewer should not work too hard to get to this story. Okay, you really have to make it clear what you're trying to say. So that takes a number of edits for anybody. And so you really have to look carefully and edit carefully so that you use your words to tell us what the reviewer wants to know. Why, how, what's your record? Okay. And also think about, acronyms don't work. Okay. Um, every college is different. And I found a lot of students at Duke didn't understand that. And, that reviewers would not know that DUMB actually meant Duke University Marching Band. Okay. So, um, help them here. Okay. So, today, Carrie is going to sort of lead you through the application, and we'll talk about these various sections of the application. Carrie?
Okay, thanks, Babs. Now I know we're going to go through a lot of slides. You heard that this presentation is being recorded, and you can go back and look at the recording on the opening page of the Goldwater website. Look on the menu on the left-hand side, lower left. So if you want to get some of the details, you can come back later. Okay, next slide, Babs. All right, let's start with the opening statements that the students are asked to give on their career aspirations. This is where they're supposed to, in 1 or 2 sentences, describe their career goals and professional aspirations. What we're trying to get out of that is their advanced degree goal. We don't want to see BS in chemistry, for example. We want to see PhD or MD PhD. We want to know, and we want to know in what discipline. We would like to know their intended research area, some idea of the questions that they're that they're interested in, and the possible career location. And I don't mean Maine or Southern California. I mean, are they interested in working in academia, in private industry, at a national lab, etc. We encourage students to state this succinctly. It really doesn't have to be in full sentences, but as clearly and precisely as possible. And just note that the reviewer has seen the student's name and institution, and this is the first thing they're reading. So it's an opportunity to get the reviewer excited about the application. Next slide. So here's a page, a number of very generic opening career statements. The PhD in astrobiology, conduct research in astrobiology. The second one just doesn't really give us any detail on the type of research. And the third one, I see this quite a bit, students interested in climate change. Well, tell us whether it's going to be the oceans, on land, in the air, etc. Tell us a little bit more. Next slide. So here are some hits, and you can read through them, but they've all indicated PhD in a particular field. They've given us an idea of the research area that's of interest, and they've said where they'd like to perform this research. And this is what we're looking for. Okay. Now, following that short career statement, the students give a detailed narrative on their career goals. And the question that they're asked to address is in the box. And they usually do a fantastic job of the first part, telling us about their career goals and professional aspirations. But what they fail to often elaborate on is how their current academic program is assisting them in preparing for that research career. And there are a number of ways that students can address this. For example, they could show the connection between their major and any minors and their intended research field. or they could delve down into the particular courses they've taken, maybe the required ones, maybe the elective courses that inside and outside of their major that they're taking or will be taking to prepare for advanced study. Let's look at some examples on the next slide. So here's someone who's a computer science major, has said what his research area is going to be, and in the detailed narrative has done a good job of course, understanding how that degree in computer science is going to help prepare him for this research in artificial intelligence. But this student also minored in philosophy and psychology. And I was just amazed at how well this student understood how those two disciplines would help him develop the kinds of skills and knowledge that would help in the future as he pursued his research. So this is a great thing for students to think about. It warms the heart of most faculty members when we see that they understand how not only their major but their minors are preparation for their future. Let's look at the next slide. Here's an approach taken by a student in applied mathematics. And the student happened to be majoring in mathematics and physics, but this student looked at the particular courses that he or she was going to be taking and talked about the specific ones that would be most related to the research interest in complex and chaotic systems. And again, this was a great example of the detail that reviewers are looking for. And the next slide gives you another example. A student took a little different approach. This is a student looking for a PhD in medicinal chemistry, particularly in looking at the symptoms and treatment of Alzheimer's disease. He or she shared the motivation for interest in this research area based on the experiences of his grandmother with particular medications. And this student wasn't actually doing research in the area of Alzheimer's disease, which is just fine. It's not usually available at all undergraduate institutions. Instead, he was a chemistry major carrying out the synthesis and characterization of organic molecules. And he talked about how that particular research experience did give him skills for his future interests. He looked at the processes by which one constructs novel molecules. He was a pharmacy minor as well, so he could understand better the interaction of drugs with the human body. And he went a little bit further, and we'd like to see this if students can identify graduate schools that they're interested in. In particular, he looked at programs that had opportunities to conduct medical research and prepare for career in industry. And he even identified 3 pharmaceutical companies with considerable Alzheimer's research that would be of his first interest right now. So that's different ways to approach this section on the detailed career aspirations. Next slide, please. After this section of the application, the students are asked to summarize their research projects. And they've given space to list 5 projects. And they often feel compelled to fill the table with 5 projects. We're telling you right now, a single project, significant project, is just fine. We don't need to see 5 different projects. Furthermore, they shouldn't take a single project and divide it into multiple short-term entries. Like, for example, the student that's synthesizing organic molecules shouldn't say in September I researched the literature, in October I synthesized the compound, in November I characterized the compound and determined my yield, etc. So please encourage students, if they have one significant project that they've been working on for some time, that's just fine. Do make sure that there's a letter of reference from a research mentor, and particularly the research mentor of the research described in the research essay. Now, if research participation has been limited, and we'll look at some examples, we understand that, but the student should offer a brief explanation in the application as to why that experience has been limited and what the student has been doing to enhance his preparation for a career in research. And I'm going to give you an example. Please have students double check the dates and the participation hours that they list in the table. Sometimes that can be quite confusing, and we'll look at an example why. Okay, here's some hits. The first example is a single project that was conducted over time, significant amount of time. The submission of the application was in January 24. And you can see the outcomes from that effort, 2 publications and 2 presentations. The second example, the student really has one true research experience for a significant time, an REU internship program listed as project number 2. But the student thought carefully about the courses he's taken and listed the course-based research experiences. And we'd like to see that. Ask your students to reflect on their course experiences. List them, everything in chronological order. But don't forget that there are opportunities to build research skills in certain courses the students have taken. Okay. I see a couple questions. Bert, anything that we should address right now? I can't, you're muted, so I can't quite hear. Sorry.
Yeah, Paul and I both provided an answer.
Okay,
The
thank
first
you.
part- yeah.
That's great. All right.
And there is a question that might be useful to discuss. If a student has extensive high school research experience, should the student present that work that they did in high school? Should they list that?
I believe in the instructions for this year, we're not looking at high school projects in the project summary. Obviously, the student can talk about that high school experience as a motivator for a research career, but we're not listing high school projects in the project summary. Okay, I wanted to show an example where someone kind of dragged out the 1 or 2 projects just to fill 5 lines. And it took a while to figure out exactly what the student had done. But when you get right down to it, even though there are 5 rows listed, there were really only 2 overall projects. And there weren't 5 presentations. There was only a total of 3, but that's fantastic. 3 was just fine. The student listed some manuscripts, but none had been submitted or published. Obviously, they were drafting those manuscripts, which is fine to talk about in the application, but not to list as a separate research activity. So just, again, urge the students to be clear in their project summary list and don't feel disappointed if they're only listing 2 projects, each with some perhaps presentations. That's just fine. Next slide. Okay. What follows the simple project summary is the detailed description of each of the projects listed. And what we're looking for, once again, are the dates and the time involvement, who the research mentor was and where the work was conducted, a little bit of a research description, the skills developed, etc. I urge, again, in this section to just be very careful with your dates and participation hours. This sometimes can cause confusion, and reviewers might end up taking a lot of time to sort things out, try to really understand the research involvement of the students, and it might not choose to spend that time. Let me show you some examples. Next slide. Okay, here's two projects listed by a student, and they appear to occur in the same summer from the dates. And it looks like the student is doing 85 hours of research a week. Reviewers are not looking for that kind of uh, deep dedication to research. And through a little bit of hunting through the information, the reviewer could find from the date of the presentation for the first project listed that, the research likely started in 2022, not 2023. Okay, so what happens, this is a missed opportunity because the student failed to demonstrate that they had a consistent and high level of research experience over 2 summers, not just a single summer. Just a small error in dates. So do check that for, have the students check it, and you can check it as well. Next slide. Here's another missed opportunity. The reviewer could see from the student's transcript there was a quarter in which the student took a reduced number of credit hours. That's fine, but no explanation was provided. From the list of research projects, the reviewer could see that there were 2 projects listed for that same quarter, totaling 30 hours of research per week, which is unusually high for a typical academic load. And here's the opportunity that the student missed. They could have said that the summer courses that were taken and the advanced placement credit afforded him the opportunity to take that lighter course load for a particular quarter and engage in 2 research projects that turned out to be exceptionally aligned with his research goals, career goals. Don't make the reviewer work hard to ferret that out. That's something that the student should have been able to clearly share with the reviewer and make his case for the research experiences that he's had. Okay, next slide, please. Now, here was an application submitted by a junior transfer student, and the only research done was in the fall semester before the Goldwater application was submitted. The missed opportunities were, first of all, the faculty member who taught the course with this particular research project did not submit a recommendation letter. That's something that's definitely a miss. And although the student was a transfer student and we totally expect a reduced opportunity for research, they could have talked a little bit more about the reason for their limited research participation. Talk about, try to convince the reviewer that you are committed to research and how that might have come about outside of a typical research experience. So again, don't make the reviewer read between the lines. Next slide, please. Okay. In this section of the application on the recognitions, activities, and accomplishments, we're giving the applicant an opportunity to let the reviewer know more about the student. We're looking for academic and campus leadership positions, any other significant academic recognitions, any extracurricular activities that would reflect a commitment to a research field. And we also like to hear about other talents and interests that the students have that define the individual. Next slide. So think about um, the following items to include. Most students list scholarships, honor societies, any other academic awards. If you are talking about an academic award and share with a reviewer how competitive that award was, like the student was chosen out of 200 students, etc., share that. We also see uh, numerous listings of tutoring positions, laboratory assistant positions, etc. Involvement in sports, music, and other activities that shows up. And particularly, the students should list any leadership positions they have in those kinds of organizations. Next slide. So these are some um, entries of students. They're fairly common. The student listed being on the honors list. We see that a lot. Don't forget to mention that. Here's an example also. The second example is where the student talked about the competitiveness of being chosen for a leadership seminar. That's great. And the last example is where a student talked about a fairly unique academic leadership position that had a national presence, and that was great to see. Next slide, please. And, we like to hear about everything that students doing. There were some memorable activities and accomplishments that I've read over the years. The university beekeeper was a interesting one. Lots of different activities. The campus volunteer for the campus feral cat community. We see a lot of Division 1, 2, or 3 athletes and accomplished musicians sharing their activities. All right, next slide. Babs mentioned not using acronyms, and these 3 entries were from one student. He used an acronym in each one, and as a consequence, really failed to demonstrate his or her research interests. So, for example, I don't know what a CCEL scholar was, but that would have been nice to see because it did reinforce the student's research interest. The SLAC Community Service Award was a leadership award, and we like to see that, but I couldn't tell that from the acronym. And the student was also the president of LEAF. The L stands for the institution, but it was an organization focused on environmental concerns, and that was exactly the student's research interest. So, missed opportunities to draw a connection with activities and honors that would reinforce the student's interest in his research area. Okay. Finally, now let's look at the academic record, where we ask students to list current and future courses as well as the transcript section. And what we're looking for here is that the student exhibits the depth, range, breadth of knowledge expected of a researcher. We're not just looking at the GPA, we're looking at the courses the students have taken, and we're trying to assess whether they have the ability that's needed to pursue a research career. Next slide. So here's a student who followed the directions that are at the top, very small font, but we're asking students to list the courses that they believe are the most important to their research career goals. And the list includes courses in and outside of the major. Broad range of courses, transcript, included additional courses in math, chemistry, physics, and computer science, which was terrific. This was a student, a life science major, so clearly taking a range of cognate courses. Let's look at the next one. Here's a miss. This is a psychology major, minoring in statistics. And the student didn't list the courses, at least I don't think, the Constitution, history, and The literature and culture course pertained to their research interest, but if they did, that was something the students should have talked about in their narrative. And they listed a number of independent research and undergraduate research courses. It would have helped if they also had indicated the department in which those courses occurred. And the student said she was a statistics major, and there was one statistics course indicated on the transcript, none in the future course list, and that the students should have talked about that. What was there something missing in their narrative? Okay, next slide. Oh, I do want to say something about the optional student statement, because reviewers don't consider it optional. This is where we're asking students to describe any socioeconomic impacts encountered that influenced an applicant's education, either positively or negatively. It's one more chance for the student to tell us their story. And again, both negative and positive statements are important. The next slide talks about a lot of the limited resources that have adversely impacted the students' education. It's just a short list. There are many more that we read. For example, sometimes there's a periodic span of time where a student is homeless and disrupts their education, or doesn't disrupt their education because they are just so committed and making the effort. Maybe the student left a foreign country and they're having to adjust to a new culture and language. Maybe they have to work several jobs to pay for college and they haven't had time, as other students have had, for research. Maybe they themselves have dealt with an illness or caring for an ill family member. Those are the kinds of things that we want to hear. Now, on the positive side, a lot of times students sometimes aren't aware of the benefits that they might have had. And so, some things to think about. If they haven't had something that's negatively impacted their education or research experience, certainly there are probably situations that have advanced their coursework or interest in research. Maybe the high school they went to or the college that they've chosen has fostered their research interest. Maybe, their family finances or the STEM careers of parents or brothers and sisters have supported their interests. Maybe they've had early research opportunities. Maybe they've taken AP courses or college level courses, and that's just given them a leg up to start taking advanced courses or pursuing more than one major. Maybe they didn't have to find a part-time or a full-time job in the summer to pay for their education, and they've been able to pursue their research and sort of narrow down their research interest. And maybe they should step back and look at their college or university and think about the opportunities that institution has provided them to flourish in their education and advance their research interests. So just some things to think about. Be humble in your response, but recognize that maybe you've had some benefits that others haven't had, and you're aware of them, and you can indicate how they've helped your research aspirations. Okay.
All right. So I think it's Carrie gets to have a glass of water now. I really think that the discussion on that optional statement is really a great time for the CR and the student to really talk those things out. And so I've always really enjoyed working with students on that one. So before the CR actually submits, you want to go through the application and look for the misses as closely as you can. And for me, this required that I had some time, which meant that I had to have an earlier deadline than the national deadline in order to get that time with the students. I usually set that I had to have a draft of the application on the first day of class after the holiday, after the winter holiday. Then we would keep working on the application, but at least I knew the student had a strong start. And I could go through and kind of look at some of the areas that we might need to talk about or showcase or discuss in the application. So, are there low grades in the major courses? Is there a reason for those? Where can we sort of talk about that with either a recommender addressing it or the student or the CR? How can we talk about that? That might be something that goes in the optional statement. Who knows? Okay. And then again, show the importance of your research in the field, probably in the research essay or somewhere else. There are plenty of places to kind of drop in some things like this. And then in the research statement, not having I statements that I did so and so. That's a big one to look for. And then, catching that the coursework doesn't support the ambitions, as Carrie just talked about. And then also, how does that coursework support their ambitions? Again, you never want to ask the reviewer to have to guess at what they mean. The clearer the application is, the easier the reviewer has in reading it and putting together the story. The more likely are they're going to come up heads. Okay. And so how can you reasonably address the misses? Again, multiple drafts can really help you, and the conversations around those drafts. Have the student rewrite the optional essay. Maybe there's something you pick up that maybe it's a lack of research or a low grade or something like that. Well, is there a place in the optional essay to put it? Okay. Or is there somewhere else to put it? Do you need to ask a recommender to speak specifically to that miss for some reason? I often would call a recommender and say, the student needs to talk about this, but they don't really want to discuss it in their part. Do you know anything about why the student had to work or that their parent was ill? Is there anything that you can say in your knowledge of the student? Or I would also, if it was something that the student wanted the folks to know but didn't know how to put it in their application, often that went in my statement to Goldwater in the nomination. So these, all of these do require that early draft, and finding time for everybody to get that done while you're also looking at other applications can be hard, but the earlier you get it started, the better. Okay. And now here are both of our emails. We welcome emails and questions at any time. But now why don't I stop sharing and let's see about your questions, okay?
So Babs, I'm gonna pick one out of the chat that
Great.
I think commonly arises. So I'm gonna read it. It turns out that Paul and John and I answered it, but here's the question. Sometimes undergraduates work on research for graduate students. For example, one student goes in 2 to 3 times a week to do work on other research, but technically it's not her own research, but she's contributing to those projects in a big way, lots of time. Should she include these as projects in this section where she's going to work with a graduate student? and our answer, we all three said basically yes. But we're more interested in, you know, a unified project where the student's in charge, the student's the leader of the project. But if you don't have that, certainly go with this.
Well, and you may have both.
Right.
Yeah, if you have both, absolutely. Absolutely.
And again, in this project where she's working with a graduate student, my comment was she should certainly mention any intellectual contribution she had to the project. She doesn't have to, you know, come across as simply a pair of hands that supported the work.
I guess I would add that the working with a graduate student on a project, particularly if the graduate student is himself or herself supervised by a faculty member, that's fine with me. I don't have a problem with that at all. What I do want though is that a letter of recommendation not come from a graduate student, or at least not be that maybe a third letter possibly, but we really want to hear from sort of established professionals as in the letters of recommendation.
What we typically advise there is that the letter be co-written
No,
by the
no,
grad student and faculty.
no, 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 no.
Mitch, do you know we heard you talking to someone in your office?
Oops, sorry about that. I'm in my car. Sorry about that. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Any other questions? I thought there was a lot of good advice in this hits and misses presentation today. Well, if we don't have any additional questions, we will be posting this to the website, and I would encourage folks to look at it again. There was a lot of information provided in this PowerPoint, and these folks are all available for emails, follow-up emails outside the open houses, so you can get in touch with any of them about questions you've had regarding the presentations and submitting a competitive application.
John, do you want to mention next week?
Yeah. Well, Bert, why don't you go ahead? You're making that presentation.
So it's not just question and answers. It's going to be a presentation about writing letters of reference, both in terms of the research mentor and other faculty writing letters and guidance, suggestions about how to make those more effective.
And I might jump in here. If you have already the list of recommenders, you are welcome to share this link with them and let them join in and hear what we have to say.
Yeah, that's a good point. The letters are extremely important. The stronger the letters are, the better the students' chances are of being selected for a Goldwater scholarship. So I would encourage you to reach out to faculty who will be writing letters of recommendation for your students. Make them aware of it. This session is really intended for them and to answer any questions they may have. So yes, I would certainly share that link with Zoom link with anybody you think would benefit from attending.
When I was campus rep, I found something like that would have been very helpful for people who are writing their first or second letter of recommendation.
Well, if there are no more questions, I thank you all for coming today, and certainly thank the presenters for the very informative presentation on things that work in Goldwater applications and some things that could be improved. So anyway, thank you again, and we'll see you next week.